I'm Sarah. I'm 24. I'm a professional body image and confidence coach for women. I work with women of all ages. I love to talk with my hands. You'll see most of that on the call. They'll be somewhere here in the frame. But I mostly work with women that are 20 to 40 years old. I work with some clients one-on-one. We have some alumni in the call here now. I also do group mastermind programs, and I work with some people through my online course, which is focused primarily on improving your mindset towards food, but that process also will improve your mindset towards your body and your confidence through the process. So I became a coach focusing on these specific areas as a result of my own struggles, where I spent years dieting, trying to lose weight. I had an eating disorder, unfortunately, and I also had severe anxiety in college. And through middle school, high school, and college, I just really struggled with my self-worth, my confidence. And because of these struggles, spending time on my own used to send me into panic attacks. I was an obsessive planner, a scheduler in college. So every hour, every day for me was written out in my planner. I knew when I was going to the gym, when I was eating meals, when I was seeing friends, when I was going out at night, all of that. You name it, I knew when I was doing it. That also means anytime that I didn't have plans, it was glaringly obvious to me. And because I have such bad anxiety and self-worth issues at the time, I equated any sort of alone time with people just not wanting to be with me or just not being enough for others to care about, which is not a great feeling. The negative thoughts were wicked strong. So when I graduated college, I knew that I wanted to help others with their overall wellness, mental and physical. But as I went through my eating disorder recovery and my health coaching certification at the same time, I realized that there are just so many coaches who help people lose weight and diet, and that isn't a lasting solution for your body image improvement or your overall inner confidence. So losing weight actually cured our body image issues. Trust me, we would know about it at this point. And I wish it did, because it'd be an easier solution, but unfortunately it does not. So, I've got someone else in the waiting room here. Give me one moment. There we go. All right. So in the past 2 years since I started this online coaching business, I've been able to help so many women with similar struggles to what I went through, find their peace with their bodies and food, and just see such an overall improvement in their confidence as a result. A big thing that I talk with many of my clients about is spending time alone, because spending time alone tests that inner self-worth, and it tests that ability to take good care of yourself when nobody's watching. And it tests our boldness and our bravery too, if we want to have experiences in public doing things on our own. So it's no coincidence that as I healed my body image and my relationship with food, and I worked to have a much better grasp on my anxiety, that I started spending more time alone and I started feeling a lot more confident in that process. I also realized that there were so many experiences that I had missed out on in the past because I just didn't want others to judge me for being alone when I was doing them, or I just felt too awkward, like I couldn't do it. So because I'm a very strategic person and a coach at heart, I also recognize that having a strategy for alone time would make it so much less scary, and also help you guys just know that you're taking the right steps as you go through this process, because it can be a bit discouraging at times. So hence this online workshop. Here we are. What we're going to cover today is the essential parts of the strategy that I've developed. Starting out using the strategy to just go to lunch on my own or take myself to the movies way back then has now evolved into giving me the ability to transition to full-time solo travel around the world. Like I said, I'm moving to Bali in a week, you guys, in less than a week. I will be on the plane to South Korea at this point, actually. I didn't get where I am now because of luck. I got here because of strategy. That's truly what I believe as a coach. And we're going to talk all about that today. I'm going to share my screen, like I said, for the majority of the workshop portion of this, not so much the Q&A. So if you have those worksheets either printed out or on your computer, pull those up now. And just in case anybody doesn't have them, I'm going to pop a link in the chat right now to a PDF version of those worksheets so that you should be able to download it pretty easily to your computer as well. Okay, so that's there. If anyone has any issues with that, sometimes the Google Drive links can be finicky, just let me know. But if you have questions throughout this portion of the workshop, feel free to write them down or chat them in, and I'll answer them in the question and answer portion of the call. But if you have clarifying questions on the activities that we're doing throughout, feel free to chat them in or unmute yourself and just ask. Nobody be afraid to talk. This doesn't have to be only a lecture. This is small groups so that we can communicate with each other. But I also always like to say there's no perfect or right way to do this work, to do these activities. So if you're wondering if you're doing an activity right, before you chat it in, I just want you to pause yourself and give yourself the moment to have your own interpretation with these activities. Everybody's experience and journey is going to look different. Doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. Pay attention to how you interpret things, pay attention to how other people interpret things, and that is how you will get the absolute most out of this workshop. So, shall we get into it? Okay, I'm going to share my screen. If I can just get like a head nod from you guys when you can see this, sometimes there's a little bit of a lag. Good, awesome. Okay, so we've got that there. So let me get on to this first worksheet that we're going to go through here. Again, if you guys don't have this printed out, then I just hope that you have a piece of paper and a pen in front of you, and you can jot down the most important parts as we go along. Sound good? Okay, cool. I'm just going to move some of my tabs around here. I got a lot of stuff going on, you guys. Oops, don't look, don't look. I used to have a second computer monitor because I just do so much stuff on my computer, and now I don't, which is unideal, but all right, I've got a bunch of different tabs open. All right, so our whys for alone time. Let's talk about why alone time is good for you first, and why you specifically want to spend more time alone. That's going to be what really allows you to have the self-motivation to go through this process. And as I talk through this, I want you to keep in mind what made you sign up for this workshop. So just think about, as I go through this, how do you feel when you think about spending time alone right now, whether it's in public or even just staying in for an event? How do you want to feel about spending time alone? And what experiences do you want to have that you might need to be on your own for? Maybe it's traveling the world like me. Maybe it's just going to a restaurant in a city that you've always wanted to try. But spending time alone is more about the experiences that you're having, as well as what you're learning from them in the process. The act of spending time alone builds confidence in all areas of your life, whether this is your relationship, your friendships, your body image, your overall inner confidence, to lower social anxiety. You can get all of those benefits from this process. So why this improves your relationships, whether it's friendships, family, or relationships, when you go through this process, is because when you spend time on your own, you get time to know yourself and to learn and trust yourself, which makes you show up in your relationships and life as a truer version of yourself. This is why spending time on your own is essential, regardless of your relationship status. So as you can see with this worksheet that I have pulled up in front of us right here, we're going to determine your overall goal for spending more time on your own, as well as your whys for spending time solo. Getting clear on your whys will help you choose what activities you should be doing solo, which we're also going to go through together, and help you self-motivate to do those things. Getting clear on your whys also allows you to feel less anxiety when we're doing things solo. I know that a big part of this class is that a lot of times doing things solo is anxiety inducing or scary before. So we're going to talk specifically through how to alleviate some of that too. But I'm going to show you an example of my whys for alone time that range from how it's just good for my mental health to that it allows me to have new experiences and learn things about our world. So let's look at some examples here. All right, so as you can see here, I filled out the worksheet with my goal for solo time and some of my whys. The goal that you'll fill in on your own worksheet in a moment will likely be similar to the reason that you signed up for the workshop. Maybe your goal is to go on a solo trip, or just to take yourself out to lunch, or to have a self-care practice where you take yourself on dates once a month. That's how I started, and I really loved that style. Or to do more things alone so that you can meet new people. Anything like that. So what I want you guys to do, whether it's on the printed out worksheet or even on your computer if you've got a little stylus, or on your notebook and paper, is I want you to fill out your goal for your alone time. And then we're going to share our goals once we finish this whole worksheet. But I'm going to give you guys 1 minute to do that now. Don't overthink it. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. You can always change it later, but I'm going to give you guys 1 minute to do that now. I'm going to start a little timer. Okay, go. Alrighty. Oh, did you guys hear that ring? Oh, I've got a timer on my computer and it rings like an alarm clock. That is unnecessary. All right, so that should be enough time to go through that for now. Oh, Angie, don't worry. I just saw that you got into the call late. Not a worry at all. All right, so as we can see here, we have our moment to fill out our goal. Next, we're going to fill out our whys for our solo time. I want you to ask yourself, why do I want to honor this goal? Why do I want to spend more time solo? It might sound simple, but I don't want you guys to, again, overthink it. It doesn't have to be overcomplicated. You can take inspiration from my own whys on the screen. Like I said, it's good for my mental health. It gets me out of the house and helps me be more active. It gives me opportunity to meet new people, all of these things. But don't be afraid to make up your own as well. There's no wrong way to do this. Everyone's motivation is different. If you have any questions, again, just chat them in, or you can ask out loud as well. So I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes to do that now. Go ahead. All right, it looks like most of us are wrapping up or done. So now that we've gotten clear on why we're doing this whole process, let's pick out some activities for each of us to start doing solo. Keep in mind that the activities that you choose for your own approach to solo time, they might look different from another person's. Also remember that the solo activities that you start out with might not be the same activities as what you eventually want to work yourself up to. As always, I do have a strategy to get you from point A to point B, so we will get you to your goals. So looking at our worksheet here, I can only show you guys one page at a time, unfortunately, on this view, but if you've got your worksheets up, you'll see that this solo self-care master list is actually 2 pages. So I've got this one here, and then there's the second one. But I'm just going to leave the screen share on this first one here for now while we talk through this. So what we have here is our solo self-care master list. This is a list of inspiration for activities that you guys can do solo. Some of these are better to do, at home, like some self-care kind of classic activities. Some of them are activities that would be better done in public. For example, kind of hard to see live music in the privacy of your own home, and many of them could be either. So whether you decide to spend more solo time at home or out in public, you can honor those whys that we just identified and get all of those benefits that we talked about for solo time from the process. Here's what I want you to do with this list. Looking at this solo self-care master list on these 2 pages, I want you to either circle the activities if you have the worksheet printed out, or copy them down in your notebook if you don't, that you know that you already enjoy. So maybe you're already a big journaler, you'd write journaling down. things that you know that you would benefit from doing. So maybe you've always wanted to get into meditation because you know it would help you clear your mind, or things that you want to try eventually. Maybe you've always wanted to try taking a drawing class, things like that. The master list is an inspiration, so feel free to add any of your own hobbies or interests to your list as well. So basically what we're doing is we're just compiling things that we already enjoy doing from the list, things that we'd like to try, or things that we know that would be good for us. They don't have to be in any particular order. They don't all have to be things that we feel like we could achieve right now. They can be things that do feel out of our comfort zone that we eventually want to do. But I just want you guys to compile a list. I'm just going to give you a minute or two to go through this list and jot down a couple activities. There's no limit. Write down everything that seems appealing to you, and I'll give you guys a minute to do that now. Again, if we have any questions, feel free to just chat stuff in, but just sketch down the stuff that you think seems appealing, that you already do, or that you want to start doing. I'll let you guys do that now. All right, wonderful. We should be good now. If you're still finishing up doing that, I can't see some of you guys, so don't worry. You can keep going while I talk. But now that we've done that, we're going to go ahead and pull up our solo staircase. So I've got a little bit of a different version of this. Let me scroll down. We're going to go through these zones that are on my worksheet. If you guys have your worksheet pulled up, then you will have a blank version of this staircase. Don't worry. But if you don't have it printed out, just go ahead and sketch this, do a rough sketch of this yellow outline that looks like this staircase here. You don't have to fill in the zones. You don't need those. Oh, let me just add someone from the waiting room. There we go. You guys don't have to write down the zones. Just go ahead and do the general outline. But this staircase method is essential to consistent solo work because it allows you to know that you're doing enough in this journey. It gives you a clear path to your overall goal. It helps you to stay mindful of your whys along the way. It also allows you to set realistic expectations for your first solo experience in each zone. They'll likely be a bit uncomfortable, maybe a little anxious or awkward at first, but that doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong when you have these solo experiences. So you can use the staircase as a general resource for choosing solo activities based on how you're feeling each day as well. So for example, we're going to put some activities in each zone, and depending on how open or anxious or outgoing you're feeling, you can choose an activity from each zone or tier that aligns with how you're feeling that day. So zone 1 is our comfort zone. Pretty straightforward, right? These are activities that you're already comfortable or pretty comfortable doing in general or on your own. Zone 2 is your fear zone. I know that that sounds probably a little bit intimidating, but fear is actually a really helpful, positive emotion for us. Sometimes it makes us open up, it shows us what we care about. So the activities that are just outside your comfort zone are going to go here. They may not be so big in themselves, such as like, like a big production, but they definitely spark some anxiety or some fear in you. Zone 3 is your learning zone, which often consists of more involved activities, maybe a little bit bigger of a deal. But it's especially exciting because this is really where we start to learn things about yourself, which is a huge benefit of doing this solo work. And then zone number 4, or boundary 3 that I call it on here, is our growth zone, which is where you experience the biggest shifts and changes in your confidence, your self-esteem, and your perspectives. So there's a reason that I had you guys just list out your activities from that solo self-care master list that you either already do or you want to do. I'm going to show you guys a copy of how I fill in my own staircase through my own journey right here. So let's bring our attention back to those activities that we either circled or jotted down. You're going to fit these activities into different zones on your staircase. I can go back to those zones so that you can have a reference in a moment, but let's just look at this example for me. So I started my journey with doing more things solo when I wanted to start doing more self-care, just kind of like taking care of my mental health and my physical health. But I felt limited by those traditional self-care activities that we would do at home normally. I also noticed that there was just like restaurants and coffee shops that I really wanted to go to in my area, or like movies that I wanted to see, but I had nobody to go with. And so I was just not going at all. So I felt weird going on my own, but I had done these things plenty of times. So although I'd usually done them with other people, I recognized that I could do them alone. And so they were close enough that I put them in my comfort zone. So in the very bottom tier, that very bottom zone, you'll see like solo movie date or going on a walk or getting coffee. I filled the rest of my staircase with activities that felt out of my reach at the time. As you can see, solo trip is at the very top. That's what I'm about to move into in my life. So we've clearly worked through those zones over time. But yeah, these were things that I really wanted to work my way up to. I ranked them honestly by how intimidating or unattainable they felt at the time. And I just focused on getting more comfortable doing the activities in my lowest tier first. And then I moved up to the second, and then the third, and then obviously the fourth as I'm moving to Bali in a week. And that's exactly what you're going to do too. I fully attribute my ability to make this move to Bali to this structure and this method right here, although it was more metaphorical and happening in my own brain, not so much something written out. I can now identify that this is the exact process I went through, hence how we have this little worksheet for us here. So I'm going to scroll. This is the blank staircase that you have in your worksheet handout. So it's now time to fill out for your own solo staircase. If you're sketching the staircase in your notebook, this is just the general shape that you're going for. Your staircase might have more tiers or less tiers. It's totally up to you. If you fill out your staircase and it's looking a little empty, just refer back to that solo self-care master list, and I can scroll up to you guys. Just let me know if you want me to do that, and pick some more activities that might appeal to you, even if you've never done them before. Again, there's no wrong answers here, so feel free to put in activities that you've never tried before, or that you might only want to do like one time. Like, for example, I don't know, really extreme example would be like skydiving. Probably only need to do that once, but you still want to do it. So this is just a visual roadmap for the many experiences that you will have in your solo time. It's going to be a lifelong journey. It's going to be a really positive experience, but we need a little romance sometimes. So what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to set a quick little timer. I'm going to give you guys, I think, like a full 3-ish minutes to fill this in, because sometimes it can take a little bit of thought. Again, don't overthink it. I'm going to just scroll back up to those zones that you kind of have those boundaries, so that you have an idea of what you're going for in each section. But again, totally subjective. Trust the process, trust yourselves, and yeah, I'll set you free. I'll check back in about 3 minutes, you guys. Alrighty, coming back in a few seconds. I'll give you guys about 10 more and then we'll keep going. Even if it's not perfect, then don't worry, you can always come back to it later. And we're going to discuss. So somebody get ready to share. All right. So does anybody want to share what they put on their staircase? And if nobody does, then I can always go first. But I'd love to hear like what's on your bottom tier in that comfort zone, maybe what you're most excited to do first, or maybe what's in your top tier as your biggest goal. If you have a staircase also that you guys want to like workshop that you feel like maybe you need some guidance on, feel free to share as well. But if anybody wants to talk, just go ahead and unmute yourself. And I would love to hear your beautiful voice.
I can share. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you so much
Okay.
for going first.
Okay. So for the bottom, like for the comfort zone, I put journal, meditate, like go to bed earlier and get up earlier. Um, those are things that I do sometimes, but not consistently enough. So this is kind of like a habit goal as well. But like also going for more walks alone, and I want to join I think I want to start going to F45. I don't know if you guys have heard of it.
I haven't.
Um
What is that?
it's their workout classes, but they're the kind of workout classes I really like. So they're kind of like boot camp classes, and I like that kind of thing. But I was thinking I exercise, so it's not like a new thing that makes me uncomfortable, but it's just like a new place that I'm
Mm,
thinking of going to because I want to meet more people, I guess. Um, for the next one, for fear, I put I want to go out to eat by myself. I want to go to the movies by myself. I'm in Portland, Maine, so there's a lot of events going on here and I want to go to them by myself. I'm in grad school, so like I have friends here and we do a lot of things, but I want to do them alone as well. Also, there's some really good sunrises and sunsets here, so I put that on. In hiking, I realized I like to hike and it doesn't make me uncomfortable, but what makes me uncomfortable is like I'm afraid of getting attacked like by another human. I think that's what prevents me from doing that, or like a
mhm.
bear or something. Learning
But a man
zone.
first.
Yeah, right, a man first, definitely.
Love it.
um Learning zone, I want to try a pottery class. I want to go ice climbing. Our school's offering it, so I think I'm gonna make myself sign up just because
What is
it's
ice
scary.
climbing?
It's like you have these like big, I don't know how to explain it. You have to Google it. But
Okay.
it's in the White Mountains in New Hampshire.
Uh-huh.
So you're
Yeah.
basically like climbing a mountain and it's all ice, I think. Um I want to start going to like self-defense classes consistently. And I want to take a snowboarding lesson. And then my growth one, I put a solo trip.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. I thank you so much for sharing first. Also, it's always scary. But I hope that you guys can take from Cheyenne's example, you can almost see the staircase through her activities. You can see how her growth zone, like her biggest goal, is kind of made up of those smaller experiences. So if she's got, like the solo trip, or some of us will have, I don't know, whatever it is, the biggest thing for you. Again, it's completely subjective. She's got things in her staircase that will help her slowly work her way up to that. And I doubt that that was even intentional when you picked those activities from the master list, but we can see that subconsciously it aligns us to our goals as we go along. So thank you so much for sharing. I want to do maybe like one, maybe two others, depending on how long we go for in this section, and then we'll move on. But does somebody else want to share? I love hearing what your guys' goals are. Just go ahead and unmute yourself.
I will go ahead and share. Okay, let me start. So for my comfort zone level, I like to go to the gym by myself. I think some of this really started while I was in college, just figuring out myself and what I like to do. I also like to people watch, and that helps me in the gym, but I still just like to do it on my own. Going to coffee shops, I can do by myself as well. I like to do that too, because I can like take enough time to figure out what I want on the list, and sometimes with them with other people. might just like take a while. I don't know. I'm like, I just want to go fast. I just want to know what I want, and it's just me there.
Mhm.
Another thing that like I've started to like doing by myself is go grocery shopping just on my own, just because again, I know what I'm there for and like I know what I'm looking for. But also just regular shopping. Sometimes it's hard because like you feel anxious to like go maybe like flow shopping with someone else because I don't know, you feel like maybe you need to show them off or you need to like show like what you're wearing. But like so for me it's like a comfort. I just have to show myself. So I like to go clothes shopping as well, just on my own. The fear zone, I would also like to go out for like a full ass meal, not like, bagel for breakfast, like dinner at the Olive Garden, just me. So that's on the list. And go to more local events. I haven't been to the art museum here yet. I live in Pennsylvania, so that's just something also there. For the learning zone, I don't know how comfortable I feel about going out maybe to like a bar by myself, but like a party maybe like I'm invited to and where you always feel like, oh, maybe I should bring a plus one because I don't know anyone. I think I just want to be like, I will go because I was the only one invited. So I will go by myself. So that's on the list. I want to learn how to rock climb. We don't have anything like that here. So like it's like in the future, hopefully to get to do on my own or just in general. And then I want to make some more involved dinners. I got this cookbook for Christmas and it's called The Walks of Life. And I got a wok also. So I'm just like trying to figure out, I don't know, dishes are so complicated. So there's like all these ingredients I always want to do with someone else. So I'm like, maybe I'll just like do it myself and find all the ingredients and do it. And then the growth zone is also a big trip. Never done one by myself. I've done like, a whole day on my own doing something, but like never for the full weekend, full week, anything like that. So that's mine.
Thank you so much for sharing. That is so exciting. I don't know if it's just because I am doing the whole solo travel thing, but I've noticed that a lot of people I've talked to, whether it's people that couldn't be here or you guys, that the solo trip is such a big one. And I think that there's a lot of anxiety that we have preemptively. I always see anxiety as almost like the anticipatory thoughts that we have before doing something. And then once you actually get on the trip, you're like, I'm pretty okay. I'm all right doing this. But I love that we all, seem to have a similar goal in that way. I love that you recognize that just cooking with yourself can be a solo activity. Like it doesn't have to be this huge production. Like I got to get dressed up and go to an event, all this stuff. Like that's obviously awesome too. But I love walks of life. Incredible. But just using your new wok, like using a new kitchen tool, just cooking yourself a meal. I have found so much comfort and a little bit of discomfort too, but you get used to it, of just cooking for myself and sitting and eating and being with myself. Like you literally treat it like you're on a date with yourself, and you give yourself again that moment to spend time with yourself and get to know yourself. And by doing that, even though it's such a small act, like just cooking yourself dinner, you show yourself that you're something that you deserve to prioritize and that you deserve to have nourishing meals and to have a creative outlet that cooking can be for so many of us. So I love that. Just in the interest of time, I'm not going to do another sharing for this one, you guys, but if there's anybody else that wants to share in our Q&A, we can always bring that back. But I do want to just keep us on a little bit of a timeline here. So thank you guys, Cheyenne, Bailey, for sharing as well. And I hope I get to hear some of your other voices soon. All right, so let's move along. Let me get all my tabs situated here. We're going to scroll down here, get past our staircase. So let's talk about self-talk. I know a reason that many of you are here is because doing things on your own can bring a lot of feelings of anxiety or just not being very nice to yourself, honestly. Especially like my example in the beginning of like whenever I was spending time alone, I was like, oh, it's because nobody likes you. Nobody wants to spend time with you. And that's not very nice and also not the case. Okay, but as always, I've got a strategy for this negative self-talk that can come up. In this case, it's my self-talk formula, which we'll look at in a moment. But first, we're going to go over just the types of negative self-talk so that you can get clear on your self-talk language. If you have ever worked with me one-on-one or in one of my group programs, then you have heard this information before, but you'll also know that the self-talk formula is something that we need to practice consistently. Understanding self-talk is really important to consistently reaffirm to ourselves, because a lot of this is just so subconscious that the self-talk has been happening in your brain for so long, and you really need to pull it from the subconscious to the conscious so that you can talk back to it. So I'm going to read over each of these types of negative self-talk. And as I do, I just want you to ask yourself, which of these resonates the most with how you talk to yourself? Some of my clients, they really strongly identify with like one type. They're like, oh, I'm so the magnifying type. And others, including myself, we can be like, oh, I do a little bit of each of those, do a little bit of all four, a little bit of 2 or 3. So again, understanding your negative self-talk language is not done for the purpose of being upset with yourself that you have the negative self-talk. So be nice to yourself as we go through this, but it's just to identify your language so that we can be even more prepared to respond to it and create a nicer internal environment. So I'm just going to read these through really quick. Our 4 major types of negative self-talk. We have personalizing, so you blame yourself for everything. Magnifying, you focus on the negative aspects of a situation, ignoring all of the positives. This could also be called like black and white thinking. Catastrophizing, you expect the worst and you rarely let logic or reason persuade you otherwise. And then polarizing, you see again the world in black and white, good or bad. There's nothing in between and no middle ground. So magnifying and polarizing are pretty similar, but they've got a little bit of a difference. But I am not going to have you guys share on what types of self-talk you think that you bully yourself with the most. I want this to just be awareness here. And then we're going to just scroll down to this self-talk formula that I have here. So that should be on your screen share. The self-talk formula is one of my favorite tools to teach in my one-on-one coaching because so many of our negative self-talk practices have existed for so long that, like I said, it's so subconscious and we just need to pull it to the front of our conscious brain so that we can talk back to it because it's, like I said, a bully. We need to be able to do that. So I want you to have this formula at your disposal for the moments before, during, and after you spend time solo. You can use the formula beforehand to calm some nerves and not talk yourself out of doing the solo activity because it might be scary or make you anxious. You can use the self-talk formula during to maximize your enjoyment, talk back to any thoughts that come up when you're feeling maybe socially anxious, and allow you to be a little bit more present in the moment. And you can use it afterwards to work through and process your experiences and maximize that self-reflection because that's what's going to encourage you to have more future experiences. I don't know about you guys, but I'm so the type to do something like one time and be like, okay, I did it, but I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't the best thing in the world. It wasn't what I thought it would be. So I'm never going to do it again. I need the self-talk formula for those moments, especially, but I'm going to read through this formula out loud, and then I'm going to walk you through an example just for the sake of time. Again, I'm not going to do a group share here, so you can take notes on the formula. You can screenshot this and stick it in a note in your phone, whatever it is you need to do to reaffirm it. But let's talk through this formula really quickly. So our self-talk formula. Step number 1, identify the negative thought as it's happening. You're just going to take a moment to, again, pull it from the subconscious to the conscious and put this thought into words. So negative self-talk is often subtle, needs to be brought from your subconscious to your conscious with language. This is literally just saying, okay, I'm feeling negatively. How can I put this into a sentence? Think about it as almost like if someone else asked you how you were feeling, how would you put it into words for them? Just create a sentence. Step number 2 is just challenging the thought. I want you to go through and ask yourself each of these questions individually. So is this thought helpful to me reaching my goal? So think that bigger picture goal of your solo time. And does it make me feel good? I want you to answer them in complete sentences, AKA provide a why. So yes, this does make me feel good because of, or no, it doesn't make me feel good because ... And then step number 3, transform that negative thought into a new statement. So take the original thought that you put into words in step 1 and replace it with one that does make you feel good, that does affirm and support and hold grace for you, that does help you reach your goal. Write it down, speak it out loud, whatever you need to do to practice it and reaffirm it. So when I teach this formula, I always like to use examples that are actually happening in my life right now. Again, if you've worked with me one-on-one and we have gone through this lesson, you have had that moment on my one-on-one call where I'm like, okay, let me think about what's going on in my life, because I like to pull examples of what is happening in my life right now so that you can see how my brain works through this actual scenario using the formula in real time. So I thought about it a little preemptively on the call. It's not so spontaneous, but A situation that involves both alone time and negative self-talk for me right now is thinking about this move to Bali in 7 days, you guys. I'm moving to a foreign country, and how I will be doing everything on my own until I make friends. I will be taking myself grocery shopping. I will be going out to eat. I will be going to whatever I want to do, the beach, yoga classes, anywhere. I will be on my own. I don't know anybody there. So working through the first step of this formula, identify, I can take a moment to hear the negative thought and put it into words. The way I would describe this thought as a sentence is, I'm going to look like a weirdo doing things alone in Bali, and I'm not going to be able to make friends. Again, it usually sounds silly when we say it out loud, but that's how I feel on the inside. That's how the thought is in words. That's step one, just identifying the thought, putting it into words, bringing it from my subconscious to my conscious. And I go through this self-talk formula in my daily life on a regular basis. Like, I had to have a moment with myself earlier this week where I had to say, okay, you're feeling some type of way, put it into words. And that's what I came up with. Step number 2 is challenge. So I'm going to ask myself, is this thought helpful to me reaching my goal? So if my goal is to have an amazing foreign experience and also to meet new friends in the process, no, it is absolutely not. It makes me want to crawl into a hole and hide in my Airbnb all day and not take any steps towards making new friends or having incredible international experiences. Does it make me feel good? Frankly, no, it makes me feel like shit about myself. That's usually the answer to that question. Step number 3 is transforming this negative thought into a new statement. So I'm gonna take this original thought and replace it in my brain with one that affirms, supports, and holds grace for me. So if our original thought is, I'm gonna go to Bali, look like a weirdo, and have no friends, this new thought might sound something like, nobody is worried about me doing things alone in Bali because they're too busy thinking about themselves. Or I'm gonna look like a badass doing things alone in Bali because how cool is it that I'm solo moving to a different country that is also a paradise? Or I am a really cool person and people will be excited to be friends with me. I just have to put myself out there in the first place so that I can meet them. So again, I want you to have this formula at your disposal for the moments before, during, and after you spend time solo. Screenshot this worksheet if it's on your phone, or you can open it on your phone, or copy and paste the formula into a note on your phone. Get off this workshop and tell a friend about it so that you can reaffirm it to yourself through that process. Do whatever you need to do to reaffirm it and just hold yourself accountable to practicing and implementing it. Sound good? Awesome. All right. So let's talk about our overall goals for solo time. We've made it almost to the end, you guys. Thank you for sticking with me so far. This last worksheet, my goals for solo time, is where we put your overall goals and those whys from the beginning of the workshop together with your solo staircase and your self-talk formula. Here's what we're going to do. Referring back to your solo staircase, you're going to envision 3 scenarios. So you'll see there's spaces for 3 scenarios on here that you're ready to experience in the near future. I'll show you some examples in a moment, but these are going to be your next steps in your solo journey. So the first step was showing up to this workshop. Congratulations, you did it. The irony of asking people who want to do more things alone to show up to a workshop alone is not missed on me. I thought that was really funny when I was thinking about it. It's like, wow, it's so ironic. But these are going to be your next steps in your solo journey, and then connected to each scenario that's either from your comfort zone or that next zone up, you're going to create a unique goal. The reason that we're doing this, something I need to emphasize here, is that the purpose of setting goals here is to practice setting realistic goals for your solo experiences. These realistic goals are going to help you relieve some anxiety and maximize the learning and enjoyment that you get out of your solo experiences. Unrealistic goals, also known as ideals or idealizations, for solo time often give us just like an unnecessary pressure and raise our anxiety level. They might sound something like, I will make a new friend today, I will have so much fun, or I will not feel socially anxious for an event. They put a lot of pressure on us to act a certain way, to be a certain way, or to have a certain outcome. These are unrealistic just because they don't serve your true reason that you want to spend the solo time. Again, those whys from the beginning. And they also don't just give you like a clear path to achieving that overall goal. So when you set more realistic goals, you're able to lower that anxiety and self-criticism. And as a result, you actually are more likely to have those ideal experiences of feeling good, of making friends, of having a really positive experience that you actually are excited to go back and do again. You have the mental space to make new connections and feel good about yourself. This happened to me so many times when I was solo traveling. So for about 5 or 6 weeks in November and December, I was solo traveling out west. So I'm in Massachusetts. I was in New Mexico and Arizona. And I spent my first week traveling, which I think I was in New Mexico for that week, just like wanting to make friends and like putting the pressure on myself to be like, okay, I'm going to go do things because I need to make friends. I want to make friends, want to make friends, totally normal. And because I put myself in that headspace, I found that when I went and did things alone, I was really anxious because I was like, oh my God, if I don't meet somebody, it shows that, again, like nobody wants to hang out with me, or I failed at this solo adventure. When I got to Arizona, I spent about a month in Arizona on my own. I took that pressure away. I realized that it didn't make me feel good. And I told myself, like, you know what? I'm going to realign these goals. My goals are going to be to just get myself out of my comfort zone, to just show up for the event, not to make a best friend at it, all of these things. And you guys, I made so many friends. Like I made friends of all ages, from a 20-year-old woman at a brewery to a 75-year-old man from California. I made friends of all different walks of life. I met them on hikes, at a brewery, at a craft fair, at a bookstore. Like I made friends everywhere because I actually gave myself the permission to just be open to connection without putting that pressure on myself. So I have to emphasize that when you set realistic goals, you actually set yourself up for more success. So I want to show you just some examples of my own realistic goals from some of my solo experiences in the past. So there we are there. So the first one on here is going on a solo walk in my neighborhood, because you can see that that used to be a goal for me. In the beginning of my experience with doing things solo, this activity made me so nervous, and I'm laughing just because I love to go on walks now, and I go on one like every single day on my own, and I don't even think about it. But I used to be so worried about what other people would think about like how I looked, because I so often was like in sweatpants and just like didn't really care about what I was wearing. And I would focus on like, oh my gosh, like what are these other people going to think of me, whether they're people driving by or people in the neighborhood. I don't know why I feel so judged by like people driving by in a car. Like, thank you for nodding your heads. Like nobody cares what we're doing when we're walking down the street. But anyway, when you set your own realistic goals, I want you to think about each scenario that you choose and what anxieties or stresses immediately come up when you think about that solo experience. So for example, someone shared that they want to take themselves to dinner. If you have a goal like that and you think, okay, like my goal is to take myself to a dinner, and your immediate thought is like, oh my God, but like, I know that I'm going to feel self-conscious about what I'm wearing or what I'm eating in front of other people. Your goal for that event might not be, I'm going to feel so awesome and I'm going to have the best time ever and I'm going to go back there every single week. Your goal just might be like mine in my first scenario, just showing up and observing what thoughts come up. That might be a realistic goal in the beginning. So I want you guys, I'll go back. Actually, I'll leave this up so you guys can look at my examples, but I'll give you guys a few moments to just draft your own scenarios and then realistic goals. And then we're going to have a quick little share moment. All right. All right, I'm going to set a timer for, I think, about 2 minutes, and we'll see kind of how we're looking when we get there. All right, just starting to finish up if you're not quite done yet. Again, if you're not finished, then you can keep working while we share, or you can always workshop and revise later. But let's have a little bit of a moment to share. So, does anybody want to share what they put as their next solo scenario and then the related goal? I'd love to hear maybe like what you're excited to do first, or maybe what you're most nervous for, because we can share and give some support. But if we have a goal that we also want to workshop, like you have a scenario, but you don't know how to set a goal for it, that's what we're here for as well. This is the group environment for that reason. So feel free to unmute yourself and share. I'd love to hear from maybe somebody that hasn't shared yet. If you guys have your cameras off too, you don't have to turn your cameras on to share. But feel free to just unmute yourself and talk. But yeah, who wants to go first?
I'll take a crack at it.
Go for it.
So one thing that like I always find myself looking up is like the free days at museums around me. There are a ton, and most of them have at least one free day a month. And I'm married, so typically I would want to do things like with my husband, but he works a lot more and doesn't like museums as much. So a goal that I have is like to just go to the next one that I can go to alone, and just like walk around a few exhibits, like 3 at least or whatever, just however I'm feeling. I'm not like the kind of person who wants to like sit and stare and ponder art. But I enjoy going. And so just like walking around a little bit, getting out of the house is like kind of an overarching goal. So yeah, just like going somewhere. They're not that far away. Like I could probably walk to a few. So yeah, that's mine.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. I really resonate with what you said about not being someone that like needs to sit and ponder. I love museums, but I'm on a mission. I'm working my way through them. I'm seeing all the wings. I'm on my way. And I love that for you because like you said, it's not necessarily just to like feel a certain way when you're there or be a certain version of like what we think of when we think of people that like go to museums. We think of like the sitting and pondering. It's not even to fit into an image of what you think that solo activity should look like. It's just to get yourself there. And I really love how you brought it back to what I'm assuming is either the overarching goal or your why of the beginning of just getting out of the house. I also have a goal like that. I live in Massachusetts and it's cold and it's dreary here. And sometimes the only way that I'm going to get out of the house during the day is to go do something on my own. Like, I don't know who's on Instagram regularly, but I shared on my Instagram story last night something that really reminded me of this, which is I just took myself to yoga because I needed to get out of the house for the day. And sometimes it's not like the fear of doing something alone, it's the motivation factor. And so I love that you bring up that overarching goal of just getting out of the house more because you recognize that it's not so much like, oh, my goal is to go to a museum and have an amazing time. It's my goal is to challenge myself and to get out of the house. So love that. Thank you so much for sharing. I would love to have one other person. Anybody else is feeling bold and wants to unmute themselves, I would love to hear what your guys' scenarios and goals are. Go ahead.
I'll go ahead. So mine was really pretty basic. It was just as weekends approach, I feel like my thought process is like what I can do with other people. Like it's what I can do with my boyfriend. It's what I can do with my friends and what are other people doing and how can I kind of like grasp onto that. But I'm not ever thinking of like, this is something that I personally want to do solo. So like, even as we were like going through everything, I was thinking I've really been wanting to see that movie, The Whale with Brendan Fraser. But it's not going to be in theaters much longer. So I'm thinking like, oh, maybe this weekend, like I'll just make a plan to do that. And if somebody, wants to tag along, they can do that, but I'll just make this plan for myself and stick to it. And that's that.
I love that, Kelly. Thank you so much for sharing. And First of all, I love going to the movies on my own. It is so underrated. You don't have to ask anybody what they want to see. It's totally up to you. You don't have to ask anybody what they want for snacks. It's totally up to you. You don't have to ask anybody where you're going to sit. It's totally up to you. Whoever I'm with always wants to sit in like the middle or the back, and I have horrible vision, so I'm always in the front. So it's really hits home for me. But I love what you say about how you're going to make this plan for yourself. And it's not that nobody's allowed to come. It's not like, oh my God, I'm doing this alone and nobody's allowed to join. It's just recognizing that you're going to make the plan regardless. And in that process of giving yourself that permission to go, whether or not you have company, you prioritize yourself and you show yourself, I deserve to do the things that I want to do, even if it's something small, like just seeing the movie that I want to see, even if I don't have necessarily like the external validation of somebody else wanting to see that movie too. So I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. We have time for one more. If anybody wants to go, I would love to again hear your voices. Does one more person want to share, even if it's somebody that's already shared before? No, not feeling too bold. All right, that's okay, you guys. Does anybody that has shared before want to share? Or are we all right? We're good? Okay. All right, you guys, we can move on. That's okay. Thank you for everybody that's shared so far. I am so used to being in like the Zoom environment at this point that it's just like, I'm so comfortable with it. But I've done like hundreds of calls, so I know how it feels sometimes. Sometimes you just want to sit back and listen to a call like this, like it's a podcast. So no worries. But all right, we've made it to the end of our workshop section of this. We're going to do our little Q&A if you guys have any questions for me. But as we wrap up the lecture portion of this workshop, I want to just give you guys this, I'll scroll down here, this solo time success checklist. This checklist is something that I want you to carry with you so that you can evaluate the success of your solo experiences with a realistic, again, that keyword realistic, self-compassionate lens. This is your key to not getting discouraged if a situation or an experience doesn't go exactly how you expected or you hoped, or it just ends up being taxing on your social battery or maybe some social anxiety. Once you've had your solo experience, whether it's just taking yourself to a coffee shop or it's booking the flights for this solo trip, I just want you to take a moment to ask yourself, did I challenge myself? Did I show myself patience and compassion? Did I set a realistic goal for this experience? Again, you have that worksheet, you know how to do that. And did I work on my positive self-talk throughout? Keep that formula somewhere safe and handy. Like I said, a note in your phone, a screenshot, and add it to your favorites, whatever works for you. And then I want you to remember to avoid measuring your success by these metrics, especially in the very beginning, where solo experiences are going to be a little bit uncomfortable and they're going to be new and really out of your comfort zone. So whether or not your experience looked how it should or how you expected, Allison's museum example was perfect, like how people expect us or how people look in the movies of like going to a museum versus how she wants to approach that. That's perfect. Whether or not you made a friend, again, when we put that pressure on ourselves, it makes it even more difficult to make the friend. Whether or not you had fun. Fun is a really interesting word. And I don't know if you guys have ever like had a friend try and like force you to go to a party. When someone tries to force you to go out to have fun, whether it's yourself or someone else, it's usually pretty hard to have fun because you're hyper aware of the fact that you're supposed to be having fun. So give yourself the permission to feel all of the emotions, positive and negative, because even if they feel negative or uncomfortable, they can still teach you something and they're still valuable. And then whether or not you felt confident, again, this is all subjective. Going on a solo trip for me is now like my comfort zone. It used to be all the way at that top tier for me. I didn't feel confident when I used to take myself to the movies. I still have a moment where I take myself to the movies and I feel a little bit like, oh, is the person taking the tickets going to think I'm a weirdo? You don't always feel perfect through these experiences, especially if you guys are in a masterclass like this. Like you're probably towards the beginning of this journey. You're not always going to feel incredibly confident, but that doesn't mean that you're not having valuable solo experiences or making progress through this process. So your solo experiences are probably going to be challenging, especially in the beginning. Fun will come eventually. So will friends. but it will likely be in smaller doses. And when you're not expecting it, maybe like my experience with making friends on my trip, just trust the process, trust that you've got a strategy for this, and avoid putting extra pressure on yourself because you got this. Sound good? All right, that's everything I have to share with you guys. One thing I would love to do for my own fun is I like to take like a group photo with these experiences. I know that some of us don't have our cameras on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take like almost like a little screenshot of the chat. If anybody's feeling comfortable and wants to turn their camera on, that would be so awesome for me. I might share this on my Instagram. If you guys have last names, I'm going to blur them out. Don't worry, but I'm going to take a group pic. Otherwise it will just be your names. And again, I'll blur out names, but if anybody wants to turn a camera on. Kelly, beautiful. Hello. Hello. Maddie. Are we going to get Laura and Maggie? No pressure, you guys. All right, I'm going to take the picture. Everybody smile. It's going to take me a second, so keep smiling. All right, here we go. I forgot to smile. Okay. Alrighty, you guys, perfect. You can stop smiling. You all look gorgeous. All right, let me save this really quick. Guys, I love classes like this. I feel like we're all best friends. Okay, so what I want to do now is you guys are here, you're live, you have the opportunity to ask me whatever questions you want. Let me stop sharing my screen so I can actually just like see your faces. You guys can ask me whatever you want. Like, you're here, whether it's about doing stuff alone, whether it's about me as a person. I don't know how long you guys have followed my work, but any questions that you guys have, if you want to either chat them in or just like unmute yourself and ask me a question, I'm here for it, and I am an open book. So somebody take it away.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So when I do have time alone, particularly like, let's say I'm eating or I'm like at a coffee shop or something, I feel like I immediately just go to like some sort of outside source for what feels like interaction. So like I'll immediately look at my phone and scroll through Instagram or something like that. So I can't imagine, like, if I took myself out to dinner, like if I'm not actively eating, what to do with myself. And I feel like that gives me a lot of anxiety. So if anyone has tips on like how to quiet your mind and just be okay with not like immediately retreating into your phone, that would be great.
That is such a good question. I'm so happy that you asked, and absolutely something that I have experienced, something I have insight on. So the first thing I want to recommend is when I work with people one-on-one, I actually have like a lesson built into the workbook I give them that is all about finding the best coping mechanisms for them, and distraction is one of them. Having uncomfortable emotions or having a negative experience or just anxiety, it's okay to meet it with distraction sometimes. I know that, again, there's this idea of what alone time experiences should look like. So going to dinner and being perfectly comfortable just sitting there staring off into space. I don't know. I agree with you. Like, what do you do? What do you look at? So having distractions is okay. Sometimes I take myself to lunch and I'm like, wow, I've had such a busy day or a week. This is such a good time to answer my text messages, to answer emails, to just have a moment to go on TikTok because I haven't had a moment to scroll all week because it's been so crazy. So distractions are perfectly okay. If you want to go along the route of distractions, also like bring a book. Like, even if it looks like, oh, I'm reading a book in a restaurant, at least your mind is a little bit preoccupied. I have also done that. Nobody cares. That is very realistic, especially when you start having these experiences in the beginning. Like, say, taking yourself to dinner is something that you want to work yourself up to. The first version of that might be sitting in a restaurant and being on your phone. Doesn't mean you're doing it wrong because you got yourself to the restaurant. When you're in that scenario of sitting at the restaurant and being on your phone, maybe you're working your way up to being in the restaurant and not being on your phone. So it's just like it's like a little baby step on that staircase. So that's part of the process. When you do get to the point where you're not on your phone or you're not doing something else, with your hands, with your mind, sitting in that discomfort is part of the process. A lot of doing stuff alone is being uncomfortable and being with yourself. doing it in small doses, like maybe slowly working your way up to spending less and less time on your phone at a meal might be a way to sit with some of those emotions without it just being completely overwhelming. But it is going to be uncomfortable, and that's part of the process. So what I'm saying here is that uncomfortable and bad are not the same thing. There are things that we do that are really comfortable and not good for us, like maybe having, I don't know, 5 glasses of wine after work every day. It's comfortable because you do it all the time, but it doesn't mean it's good for you. And there are things that are uncomfortable, but good for us. So taking yourself to a meal and feeling a little awkward. So if you work yourself up to that point, which I know that you absolutely can, if you use a lot of the strategies that we talked about today, it is going to feel uncomfortable at some points. And I'm not going to tell you it's not. It's just giving yourself the permission to sit with that experience and know that uncomfortable doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. Does that answer that question? Okay, awesome. That was such a good one. Anybody else? I'll wait.
I have a question about your trip that you just went on.
Yeah,
'Cause
absolutely.
you know how you said you used to be very much a planner. So when you went for 5 weeks, did you like plan everything, like where you're gonna stay, what you're gonna do? Like how did you do that? And if you didn't, like how did that feel? And how did you like navigate what you were gonna do? And if you didn't want to like go for a hike and you did feel really alone, how did you navigate those feelings and like push yourself to do it?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, I was an obsessive planner. Like every single part of my day was time blocked, even just like nap or downtime. That was a time block. I planned it. So on this trip, yeah, I didn't plan any of the activities that I would be doing unless they had like a really specific time constraint, like an event that was only happening on one day. But even then, I didn't plan super far in advance. So on that trip, I'll simplify it. And I'm just going to say that I was in like Arizona the whole time. Really, I was in New Mexico and then 2 different cities in Arizona, but let's just say I was in Arizona for a month. I booked my accommodations in advance because I find that's the level of planning I do need. You can be more spontaneous with things like that and the world won't end, but it probably is going to be more expensive. So I had a combination of, I had house sitting, I had Airbnbs booked, and then I was staying with friends for a couple of days at a time. So I had that planned. Other than that, I don't know if you guys have ever used like Google Maps, but there's a feature on Google Maps where you can basically create a visual list. Like you can pin a bunch of places and add it to one map. So it's like, for example, I was in Phoenix, Arizona. I made a list called Phoenix and I just pinned a bunch of places that I maybe wanted to go. So I did a little bit of preemptive research to kind of have an idea of what I might want to be doing on that trip, whether it was I really wanted to take a pottery class, so like pottery studios I could check out, or craft fairs, or parks that looked pretty, or museums, all those kind of things. But I didn't plan the exact moments when I'd be going to them because I wanted to challenge myself to be a little bit more spontaneous. And then I would say, okay, it's Wednesday. I just finished work at 2 p.m. So I've got like 3 hours of daylight. Where can I go? What's on my map? And that helps me in that way. You can make like a general list. It doesn't have to be a map either. And that's how I kind of had a little bit of flexibility in the process there. Does that help answer that question? Awesome. Okay. Anybody else? Oh, Maggie, let me just read your message really quick. Mindful eating when you're alone. Absolutely. That I feel like I would put under the category of it being a little bit uncomfortable when you're doing it, just because of the social anxiety of like, okay, I'm literally just sitting here eating alone. Like I know people are looking at me. People probably honestly aren't really looking. And if they are, it's just because they're curious. But the mindful eating is uncomfortable because it helps us bring awareness and lets those thoughts come in. A lot of the discomfort of spending time alone is being on your own and having the space for thoughts to come into your brain. This is why a lot of us keep ourselves either around friends and family all the time and or just busy all the time. It's because if we're busy all the time or we're distracted all the time, those thoughts don't have a space to come in. So mindful eating is absolutely such a good thing to do, such a good way to practice, to feel like you're, Kelly, like doing something while also not on your phone. So I really love that option. And mindful eating also doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm eating slower or I'm eating, less. It could just be, I'm taking each bite and I'm putting my fork down in between and I'm asking myself, like, Do I like it? Does it taste good? Does it taste as good as when I started? What's the texture like? Would I eat here again? Letting some other thoughts pass in and out of your brain as well. So yeah, Maggie, I absolutely love that suggestion. Thank you. All right, anybody else? Maggie, I know you said you can't turn your audio on, but if you have any questions, just chat them in. But Cheyenne or Bailey, any questions, you guys? I know Cheyenne, you just asked one, but Bay, you good? All right, okay. Well, Maggie, if you don't have any, I know that you, again, can't turn your audio on, but I haven't seen anything in the chat. Then I think that we're all good, you guys. This has been so much fun. Do we all feel good? Thumb up. Awesome. Okay. All right. I can answer any other questions that might come up after this. If you guys have anything, then you can send me an email. You can, and I think it'll be on like the booking confirmation that you got the information for the class on, or you can send me an Instagram DM. I do look at my Instagram DMs. If anything else comes up in the process, you guys, please, please, please. And Bailey knows, because Bailey and I have worked together before, but I actually want to hear like updates on this. Like Bailey keeps me updated on her life. She tells me things. She sends me voice memos. I love it. I actually want to see like photos of you guys doing this stuff. I want to hear about if it was easier than you thought or more difficult than you thought. I am absolutely here for that. I am that kind of person. I really genuinely enjoy staying connected with you guys after events like this. So thank you all for being here. I'm going to go ahead and end the call. And hopefully I hear from you guys soon. Hopefully I get some photos or some updates on your alone time, but you're all amazing. Go off into the world, do amazing things. And I hope I hear from you guys soon. Bye.
Thank you.